And welcome back. You are watching Politically Correct, and of course, I am Maya Hayakawa. Today, we're discussing all things about the youth in Kenya. I am here with the youth representative to the UN, Miss Wambui Kahara. Welcome back, Wambui.
Thank you.
Now, you had just started talking about what the government is doing currently to increase the opportunities towards the youth. Could you just highlight some of the things that the government has done so far for the youth?
Mm-hmm. Okay, as I mentioned before, there's the youth fund where the government is actually lending money to young people to start up their businesses. Mm-hmm. And this is somewhere that, or this is an area that young entrepreneurs can actually tap into. And also there's a Uwezo fund that is being given to the young people to also just help themselves. And the government has also set aside 30% procurement for its women, youth, and people living with disabilities. And so more and more young people should actually take up this 30% procurement, because this is how that they will be able to build themselves and, of course, be successful. Another important thing to note is about the technical schools that the government has placed in the counties. The reason why I think this is important to mention is because young people are diverse, and young people are talented differently. And so the technical schools will give an opportunity for the young people to actually come and train themselves through their skills, what they're good and passionate about. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the formal education, but you can actually, if you have a skill, you can actually be able to be trained and actually be able to now use your skill to actually make money and go into like a different sustainable livelihood. So this is important. And another thing is about the curriculum, where the government has now adopted, like financial literacy. They have adopted like entrepreneurship, and they've adopted also, talent academies, where you go to the counties and your talents, you can actually be able to build on your talent and then later on use your talent to create jobs and to actually use that for your own livelihood. So there's lots of initiatives that the government has are doing. However, there is a challenge because, one, there is lack of information. And many young people, as much as they might be aware, they don't know the procedures. Yes. And they don't know how to go about them. And so the issue of information is actually key. We need to know how we can actually reach there, not just for the young people in Nairobi who might know well about these opportunities, but also young people there at the grassroots level. They need the information, and the mode of information is actually important, because we need to use youth-friendly ways of getting the information out. For example, the government will say that, these opportunities are actually printed in the newspapers and in the newspapers every day. But think about it. How many young people read the newspapers? Young people on the media, they're on Twitter, they're on Instagram, they're on Facebook. So why don't you use these youth-friendly ways of actually getting the information to them? Another thing is using their language, because if you use very complicated language, they'll look at that long sort of composition and they would be like discouraged. But the thing is, if you want to get through to them, you can actually use a language that you actually understand. You can maybe use simplified English, or you can use Sheng, or you can use slang, whatever it is, but to make sure that this message is out there. The other challenge is capacity building. As much as we have these opportunities for these young people, are they empowered to actually access them? One, do they have the financial literacy? In terms of, even if you access all these funds, how do you manage your money? And even if you have been given the 30% procurement, how do you go about it? What is the implementation strategy? So this is somewhere that the government needs to actually link up with development partners to see how the capacity of young people can be built. They can be empowered. So that when they're taking up all these opportunities, it's not something that I borrowed money and then I used it maybe to, go out with my friends, or I used it to maybe even pay school fees, And this is money you are given specifically, for entrepreneurship and for investment. So this is one of the challenges. And the other thing is youth involvement and engagement. And this, boils down to public participation. As much as we have all these opportunities for the young people, are you engaging the young people to tell you that these are our priorities, that this is how you can solve our problems, so that they own the process? The government has done a brilliant job. However, you're wondering why in 30% only 1% has been accessed. And many times they're saying young people are not actually accessing these opportunities. And even this 1%, majority of them are women, not actually young people. But my question is, are we getting young people in the negotiation table? Are you getting them as equal partners and asking them, okay, we have these opportunities, so now tell us, how do you want us to actually go about it? Is it like the criteria is too high, or is it's too low? Or what is the challenge? What is going on? Are we speaking with these young people one-on-one to actually give them an opportunity to be part of a process, so that they don't feel like, oh, this is a government's thing, this is not our thing. But they need to feel that this is our thing. They need to embrace it. They need to own the process. So even as much as when it gets rolled out, that the young people are participating. And that is the only way that you will get young people to be drivers of innovation and drivers of change in this country.
Okay, real quick, for all the young people that are watching right now and they don't know much about the Uwezo funds or the funds, what is the procedure? How can they access the funds? What do they need to do? Maybe you could just give a brief overview.
Okay, so first of all, it's important to maybe say that we have youth centers, we have Huduma centers. So if you need any kind of information, you can just actually walk. Or there's one in town, and of course in the counties, you can go to your local county governments where they have all this information. There's a certain criteria, and of course I'm not going to go through the whole criteria. You have to be within this age and this age. You need a certificate. You need like sort of like security. So there's lots of requirements that you need, but this information, you can actually access it online. You can actually just go and Google Youth Fund Kenya, or you can Google Uwezo Fund, and they'll take you step by step about how you can actually access these kind of funds and these opportunities. The challenge has been, some young people have complained that, we don't have internet. How do we now go online and do this? Maybe we don't have a smartphone. But the challenge is, maybe what I'll tell young people is that you have to meet the government 50%. You have to meet them halfway. The government will not bring this opportunity to your bedroom. You have to go out there and look for the information. You have to take the step and actually make sure that you actually are qualified for you're qualified for these kind of like opportunities and funds. So it's for young people to take that initiatives and to learn from those people who've actually made it, because we have success stories. Young people have gone. They've accessed the funds. They've actually started out businesses, and right now they are actually making money and creating jobs. So we need to change our mindset in terms of, this will never work. The criteria is too high, and all that. We need to go out there and just do it.
But then speaking of the youth, just looking at the UN and looking at the government, we define the youth very differently. In the UN, we say the age gap is about 15 to 24, whereas the government says 18 to 35. What is your definition of the youth, and what age group would you say you are representing?
So according to the Constitution of Kenya, young people are between 18 to 35. And of course, this has also been adopted in the African Union Charter as well. And of course, in every country, they have their own definition of youth. In some countries up to 30, some countries up to 24. And some countries, they don't go to 15 because I say that is a category of children. So being in Kenya, my definition is definitely between 18 and 35 according to the Constitution. And even when the Kenyan government and of course the UN, they're rolling out programs in Kenya, the gap, the age group is between 18 and 35. Yeah.
All right. Real quick, could you highlight some of the UN global programs that you're planning to domesticate here in Kenya?
Okay, one of the programs is the World Program of Action for Youth. The World Program of Action for Youth was actually endorsed by the UN General Assembly from the year 1999 and beyond, from the year 2000, I'm sorry, and beyond. So this program is actually a link between the government, the UN and the young people. And in this program, it identifies the national priorities of youth, and it rolls out sort of like a framework, or it designs action points on how government can work with its young people. And it has 15 priority areas, and some of them are education, entrepreneurship, health. There's also juvenile delinquency, there's security. Some of these things are actually under the World Program of Action for Youth. So right now we're trying to see how we can domesticate it here in Kenya, how we can identify the main priorities, because as I said, whatever young people in Kenya are going through, another priorities of somebody who's in Norway, a young person in Norway. Here we're going to talk about unemployment. In Norway they'll talk about something totally different, because unemployment is not their challenge. So domesticating it here, meaning that we do national consultations, and we actually do a survey and research, and we do grassroots consultation to find out what are the priorities of young people.
I definitely think that's what's lacking, because sometimes we have all these great ideas of these great programs, you want to replicate them, but are they actually going to work here? Is it actually addressing the issues that we are dealing with here? So I think research is a very, a very important point to start before you even start, designing the programs.
Exactly. And just as you said, another important thing is consulting, the consultative process. What is it? Because sometimes, even researchers can come from, a point of, I have done research, but have you gone to the ground, to the grassroots level, and I've actually talked to these young people and find out what are their priorities? Are you engaging them in terms of, if you're making this program, are you engaging them to get their 2 cents? Are you engaging them to actually come and tell you that, honestly, I mean, I know that, the researchers, and I know all these people are saying that our priority is probably unemployment, but for me, maybe my priority is I don't have food. So are we engaging these young people, and are we actually getting more of like getting these young people and looking at the majority of what their priorities are? And that is why I think that participation is most important, so that young people can actually be able to own this process. And so that program, the World Program of Action for Youth, is one of the programs that we're actually looking to domesticate here. The other program is prison entrepreneurship training for young offenders, and this is actually an outcome of the International Youth Week last year, and we actually designed an action framework for youth, where young people felt that it's important to actually empower the marginalized young people. And the trends are going that 60% of our population in prison are actually under the age of 35, and 50% of them, once they leave prison, they go back to prison. So there's a cycle. So we're actually trying to, we introduce this program to ensure that they have an alternative sustainable livelihood. So once they leave prison, they can be able to reintegrate back to the community. So this is a program that we have partnerships with different stakeholders and development partners to ensure that we actually reduce crime and ensure that these young people actually become economically sound. Yeah.
All right. Well, very great initiatives there by the UN, very informative. I really do hope that you've learned something new about the UN and some of the programs that they're adopting here. And I would like to encourage all the young people that are watching this right now to take action, take use of these opportunities that the government is rolling out, and take control of your life. Do something about it rather than waiting for someone to do something for you. We're going to take a real quick break, but when we're back, more with Wambui Kahara.